You step onto a gleaming ship. The steel band is playing, there's a cool drink in your hand, and you're ready to set sail and float away from real life. Until your onboard account starts stacking up like a slot machine gone wild. Hidden fees, mandatory charges, and weird tipping rules pop up like whack-a-mole. Now, I'm a careful planner who loves to ball on a budget, but even I have been caught off guard more than once, especially when I was new to cruising. Hi, I'm Melissa, a university professor who loves to cruise and who loves to talk ship. So in this episode, I want to talk about how hidden fees can wreck your budget. Now, here's a mistake that even seasoned cruisers make. We sometimes forget about port fees until after we've clicked book now. These port fees are not optional, and you'll see line items for things like pilotage, docking fees, head taxes. These are all charges that local port authorities and ports of call bill to the cruise line, and of course they pass those along to us. And it's important to know if you're going on certain itineraries as well. I recently booked a Panama Canal cruise, and I had a little sticker shock, even though I've taken over 40 cruises, when I saw all of those port fees and those taxes, because Panama is notorious for them. Alaska also has high port fees. So make sure you're aware of that before you get too excited about booking your cruise itinerary. Because depending on your itinerary, especially those with high port fees, those charges can add $100 to $250 per person. And they're gonna hit no matter if you're in a suite or an interior cabin. Now let's talk about another fee that sometimes confuses cruisers, which are gratuities. Now, tips are usually provided optionally for exceptional service, even with our out-of-control tip culture that we have going on in the United States. So when it comes to cruising, there's a lot of misconceptions and misunderstandings. So are cruise ship gratuities optional, or are they a moral obligation? Now, this can be a hot button issue. I see no cruise topic debated and argued more than cruise ship gratuities. But here's how it works, and then we'll talk about what you think. On most lines, daily gratuities range from about $16 to $25 per person per day, depending on the cabin class. So usually if you have a higher level stateroom like a suite, you're going to incur higher daily gratuities because presumably you're getting a higher degree of service. Now, whether they're automatically added to your account or prepaid with your fare, that is up to you. Personally, I never prepay my gratuities because I see zero reason to do that. As a business professor, I understand the concept of time value of money, and why would I give the cruise line my money before I have to? Now, I have every intention of paying my gratuities. I just let them get added automatically to my bill, which usually happens the last night of your cruise. So whether you prepay or not, that's completely up to you. Personally, I never prepay, but I do pay. And that's another hot button issue. Some cruisers decide they don't want to pay gratuities at all, either because they're anti-tips, they maybe had bad service on that particular cruise and they don't feel like tips are deserved, or they prefer to hand out cash. And if they decide to remove the gratuities, that is an option that most cruisers have. If you do want to do that, you stand in line at guest services. I always say it's the line of shame. That last night when you see that long line at guest services, many of those people are there to ask for the gratuities to be taken off their bill. And I'm not gonna lie, I try not to judge, but when I see it, I do cringe a little bit because I do have a bleeding heart for cruise ship staff. They work really hard, they are underpaid, they deal with a lot of stuff. And these gratuities go to the people, not just that you're seeing, the bartenders, the room stewards, but this also goes to the behind the scenes folks that you otherwise wouldn't see and you otherwise wouldn't have a chance to actually hand a tip off to. Now, of course, in a perfect world, would cruise lines not exploit labor and would they pay their employees fairly and give them reasonable working conditions? Yes. Would they actually flag in the United States where they're bound to US rules and OSHA requirements and labor requirements? Yes. But that's just not how it is. So as it is now, when I cruise, not only do I provide those included gratuities, which I don't prepay, I include in my bill, but on top of that, I choose to give cash for exceptional service. But regardless of how you decide to operate with your gratuities, it's completely up to you. So personally, I tip generously, but not all cruisers do. And if you don't and you get spotted in line taking those tips off, are people gonna judge you? Probably. Do you care? Maybe, maybe not. When it comes to tips, personally, I like to do it with a little style. I bring a stack of crisp $2 bills because they feel like Lucky Charms. And a lot of times cruise ship crew get really excited when they see these $2 bills. Now, I have heard the criticisms of, well, $2 bills are sometimes hard to spend in foreign countries. That's how I choose to tip. So judge me if you will. But I love my $2 bills. I go to the bank. I just order them sometimes, or sometimes they have them on hand. It's no extra cost to get them. And I just buy those $2 bills. And it's my favorite way to tip on a cruise on top of those included gratuities. So I'm curious, let me know in the comments what you think about cruise tipping culture. Do you prepay or do you pay at the end of your sailing? Or are you the type of cruiser that has the gratuities taken off? And what are your favorite tipping strategies? One other thing I see cruisers do a lot too is they go out and they buy snacks or little gifts for the steward or other crew. And that's a really nice gesture, and I think that's really awesome, but I have heard firsthand from crew that their cabin space is really limited. Most of the employees on a cruise ship are sharing interior cabins. They have very, very limited space. They're doing contracts for several months, so they're living in these limited spaces that are shared for months on end, so they just don't have a lot of extra space. So with everything, cash is gonna be king. And here's another little tipping trick that I use when it comes to the room steward, and I'm curious what you think. A lot of people debate whether or not they should tip their room steward, well, at all, but if they do choose to tip, if they should tip it at the front end of the cruise or at the back end of the cruise. Now for me, I actually do both. I split my tip and I tip a little extra on day one. The steward will come around, they know your name, they're gonna introduce themselves, I give them that tip. And it's not a bribe, it's just a little extra incentive to know that I'm gonna take care of them. And I do say there'll be more at the end. Now, whether or not that makes a difference on the service that I receive during that week-long cruise remains to be seen. Anecdotally, I feel like it makes a difference. And then at the end, I do tip that extra, and that amount depends on how good the service actually was. So when you're taking a cruise, make sure you think about gratuities. And if you're a newer cruiser, understand that cruise ship gratuities can get a little more complicated than you might think. Up next, let's talk about the number one thing of cruising that drives me freaking crazy, and it's the cost of staying connected. Now, look, I fantasize about getting on a cruise ship, cutting off all of the wires, having no phone, having no computer, sitting back with a book, ignoring emails, and escaping my real life. But I can't do that. I am a real life professor. The only way I can cruise monthly is by working from a cruise ship. So I need Wi-Fi. I have to have it. I have to have it to respond to students, to do grading, to do emails, to make cruise content. I need all these things running while I'm still at sea. And cruise lines know this, and that's why their internet packages sometimes feel like bottled water in the desert. Depending on the line and the plan, it's pricey. You can expect to pay $15 to $30 per day. Some cruise lines charge per device, and others will throttle your speed if you stream too much. Most of the cruise lines also have a cheaper introductory package, usually for like social browsing, and then a mid-tier, and then a higher tier, or 2 tiers, right? And because I'm using sometimes Zoom, which can be iffy even with the higher levels, and I'm using heavy computer usage and a lot of social media usage, almost always, every single cruise, I kind of have no choice. I get the premier or the highest package. Now, here is one workaround that works with most cruise lines, but not all. And I'll tell you the one that it doesn't work on, and it drives me crazy in a minute. But what I do, because I'm cheap, I like to ball on a budget, is I will buy one internet package, the highest package, and I will share it with myself and with my children. So with most cruise line Wi-Fi, you can actually disconnect one device and reconnect another device. So I'll buy one Wi-Fi package. I tell my kids, don't cry about it. You're gonna get limited Wi-Fi. I'm gonna give you each like 30 minutes a day. And 30 minutes a day, I'll log off. They can log in with my Wi-Fi package to use the internet, and then mama gets it back. And then when it comes to working on my computer, I log off my phone, log onto my laptop in my room or wherever I'm out on the ship, do my work, log off the laptop, and back on my phone. Doing that Wi-Fi back and forth is a way to save, because I'm sure as heck not gonna buy 2 Wi-Fi packages unless I have to. And there's one cruise line that really ties down your Wi-Fi package to one device and locks it in, and it drives me crazy, and that's MSC. I just got off MSC World America. Wonderful ship, wonderful experience. I like MSC, it's not my favorite, but I like MSC and I love World America, but I hate their Wi-Fi policy. When you buy a Wi-Fi package with MSC, you have to commit to one device and one device only, and once that is locked in, that's all you get. So I was too cheap, I didn't buy a second Wi-Fi package, and let me tell you, friends, I felt absolutely buried. It's summer, so I'm not actively teaching, but I still had a lot of emails and things to do. But not having my computer and saying, okay, well, I'm just not gonna do computer. I'm just gonna try to do some emails from my phone and do everything from my phone. It did not work out for me. And in retrospect, I wish I had bought 2 Wi-Fi packages, but man, that cost just stings, and I don't wanna have to do that. So I wish MSC would rethink that policy. So if you're cruising with MSC, you're like me and you are dependent on Wi-Fi, be aware of that. And if you're one of the lucky people that can truly disconnect on a cruise, I am very happy for you, but that's not me. I wish it were. So I want to know, what are your cruise Wi-Fi tips, tricks, and strategies? And I do know with the MSC thing, there is this kind of like workaround hack that you can do. It works better with Android devices. I'm actually a pretty tech savvy person, and I kind of researched it online. It was just too much for me. So I just said, screw it, and lived with one device and paid the price. But if you're super techie, you're super motivated, there are hacks out there to get around it. Now let's talk about drink packages, because unless you're cruising on Virgin Voyages, which does include soft drinks, they also include gratuities too, which is one thing I really appreciate about Virgin. They're really the unique standout cruise line in that way, is that most cruise lines do not include any drinks outside of water, basic coffee, basic tea, and sometimes things like basic lemonade. Everything else, your specialty teas and coffees, soda, obviously alcohol beverages, beer, cocktails, wine, it's gonna cost you extra. And it's not cheap. Even a soda might be between $3 or $4. Beers typically can be $7 to $10. And cocktails, they can get up to $15. Oh, and to add insult to injury, a lot of times gratuities are tacked onto that drink cost automatically. So drink packages might tempt you with their simplicity of, oh, all I can drink. I want a truly all-inclusive cruise experience. And if that's the case, go ahead and buy that. If it's gonna make your vacation more relaxing, by all means do it. But depending on the cruise line, the promotion, their specifics of the drink package, it may not be the best deal unless you are a super, super, super heavy drinker of alcohol drinks. Why? Because these drink packages, they're very expensive. They're way more expensive than Wi-Fi. They run anywhere from $55 to $85 per person per day. Plus, some cruise lines cap you. Carnival caps you at 15 drinks. Princess now caps you at 15 all drinks, not just alcohol drinks. It used to be just the alcohol drinks, and you could get unlimited soda, coffee, whatever else, but now it's 15 drinks total, which is making a lot of cruisers very unhappy. And to add insult to that injury, most of the cruise lines, all the cruise lines really, I don't know of any that doesn't have this policy. They have a policy that if you buy the drink package, everybody in your room has to have the drink package. So I am not a drinker. If I cruise with a friend who is a drinker, she wants to buy the drink package, I'm forced to buy it too, even if I'm not gonna take advantage of it at all. I barely even drink soda. So you have to calculate that into your consideration of costs of whether or not it's a good deal or not. Now it is helpful to look out for promotions. Royal Caribbean sometimes offers promotions, although Royal Caribbean, I love you, but I hate your promotions because a lot of times they'll say something is half off, but they jack up the regular price. So you really have to be cautious with Royal Caribbean with that. But sometimes with the drink package, they will drop the price to the mid $60 per day per person price, which can make it a better deal to snag it at that cost. Now, the one cruise line that I think is worth buying the drink package, the only cruise line that I ever buy the drink package, in fact, is Holland America Line. They have a really great kind of all-inclusive have it all package, which includes not just the drink package, for me, that's the cherry on top, but it includes Wi-Fi, which I already have to have. It includes specialty dining credits, which I like specialty dining. I don't know if I would always necessarily buy it or not, but if I get it in a package, I will. And it also includes excursion credits, and that varies depending on the length of your sailing. And Holland often offers this at half off, which makes it a steal. Probably one of the few bargains when it comes to extraneous cruise line extras these days. So when I'm sailing on Holland, which I do about 3 times a year, I see that have it all package at half off, I almost always snag it. Now, regardless of the situation, when you're doing your math for a drink package, and by the way, I have a video coming soon about the math of cruise drink packages, so stay tuned for that. But here's another thing you need to consider when you're calculating whether or not the drink package is worth it for you. And that is the balance of port days versus sea days. This is really important because on port days, you're off the ship. If you have a long port of call, you might be getting off the ship at 8 a.m. and not getting back on until 6, 7 at night. So you're not drinking on the ship. You're not taking advantage of that package. And so you're not going to consume as much on those port days. And you add to that the fact that some cruise lines, like Carnival, you drive me crazy with this, Carnival does not allow use of its drink package on its own private islands. Half Moon Cay, Princess Cay, Celebration Cay. It drives me crazy. It's a cruise line private island. You bought the cruise line drink package. Why does the drink package not work on the island? Make it make sense. So you have to consider that as well. Although many other cruise lines do allow you to use the drink package on their private islands and their private properties. But consider that difference and consider that calculation of how much you're gonna consume on port days compared to how much you're gonna consume on sea days, because sea days, you're sitting around a cruise ship, you may get bored, you start drinking a lot more, not just alcohol beverages, but other things as well. So sea days, you're gonna get more bang for your buck. And if you're like me and you almost never drink, you're a super light drinker, you don't really drink soft drinks, you're almost always going to be overpaying. Now, sometimes I will get free drink packages with casino offers. And by the way, if you're curious about how to cruise free with casino offers, which is what I do, it's how I cruise monthly for free, is I have a free guide to casino cruising. I'll drop it down below with all that information. So sometimes with a casino offer, I get the free drinks included, sometimes for me and a guest. And what I find happening is even though I didn't pay for it, I end up over consuming. And I'm not an alcohol drinker, but I overconsume on the sugar. I don't normally drink more than one specialty coffee a day. I normally don't drink soda, and if I do, I drink maybe half of one at home. But when I have that free drink package, I find myself wanting to get my money's worth, even though I didn't pay for it. I paid for it in the casino, but I want to get my money's worth. So I end up chasing that value and drinking a lot more, even non-alcohol beverages, than I would like. So that is another little hidden danger, aside from the financial cost of drink packages, and something that you probably should consider. Now, here's one more sneaky expense that a lot of cruisers overlook, which is how you pay. Now, this one caught me unawares. I used to use a debit card, thinking credit cards were wasteful. I followed Dave Ramsey. I'm like, I don't want debt. And I used my debit card to help me stay financially responsible. But then I took my first ever MSC cruise, which is a cruise line that's headquartered in Europe. And I used my debit card at the end of the cruise. I got my statement and I got charged with a foreign transaction fee. I'm a US citizen taking a cruise out of the United States, coming back to the United States, but I still got hit with a foreign transaction fee. So now I learned my lesson. I only use travel rewards credit cards in order to save on international transaction fees. I always knew when I'm actually traveling to foreign ports of call that I would get hit with international transaction fees on a debit card, but I never thought that would happen on a cruise ship out of the United States, but it did. So I've really come around when it comes to how I use cards. And there's one card in particular I use, the Capital One Venture X card. I think it's the best for travel. It does have an annual fee, so if you're an infrequent traveler, probably not worth it. But if you're like me and you travel a lot, it's a great thing. It's really, I think, the best card. I'll drop the information below. But what's great about a travel-specific credit card is not just the avoidance of those transaction fees, but it's easier to resolve issues. Like once I got double charged by the cruise ship spa and I had to kind of fight it. And it's much better for fraud protections. There are a lot of cruise ports that vendors maybe aren't on the up and up. You buy a trinket and they steal your credit card. There also are perks. So I cruise free on casino offers, but I have to pay for my airfare. And even though I ball on a budget and I fly Frontier, usually pretty cheap, back and forth to Florida usually, which is my home port where I usually leave out of, I still have to pay for my airfare. So having travel-specific cards helps me earn points to cover the cost of my airfare. But if you're like me and you are still wary of credit, because I don't want to be running up a lot of debt, here is my advice. Still treat it like a debit card. Don't hide from your balance. Don't hide from your cruise stateroom account. Many times I've been on a cruise, I know on the app I can look at my charges, and I intentionally don't look at my charges because I know they're gonna be ugly, and it's kind of stick my head in the sand and not look at it. But to stay diligent, you've got to treat it like a debit card, treat it like real money, only spend what you have in the bank so you can pay that off and not incur the interest, and always look at your cruise stateroom accounts, which by the way is also important because once you get off that cruise ship, if you do have an issue like a double charge in the spa, if you don't catch it on the cruise ship, it's really difficult to try to resolve it with the cruise line once you're back on land. And then you typically do have to fight it with your credit card company. So those are the big ones. You've got your gratuities, you've got your port taxes and fees, you've got your Wi-Fi, you've got the drinks, you've got sometimes credit card charges and things like that. But there are a lot of other things on a cruise that can really creep up. Cruises nickel and dime nowadays, especially. They're always trying to sell you on something both before your cruise with their email promotions and especially during the cruise. Everywhere you turn, there's photographers taking your picture, trying to get you to buy photos, people trying to get you to buy shots, trying to get you to buy all manner of things. So it's tough sometimes to remain disciplined when it comes to your cruise budget. Another thing that's important to note is that cruises are cashless societies. So when you're taking a cruise and you're ringing up charges by scanning your stateroom card or using a key fob or a bracelet fob, you might not be thinking of it. You might be thinking, oh, it's not like really real money. It's just gonna go get charged and you're not looking at it. So being disciplined on a cruise is sometimes easier said than done, but understanding all of these other fees, how they can creep in and make an all-inclusive cruise no longer all-inclusive, that's the key to balling on a budget when it comes to cruising. So I wanna know, what hidden fees have caught you by surprise, or what money mistakes have you made on a cruise? Lord knows I have made my share. Let me know in the comments and let's talk ship.